Hello, welcome back. What if money didn't mean debt? In the late 1800s, a man controlled more gold than entire nations. His fortune was so vast that newspapers whispered he could personally topple the U.S. Treasury if he wished. That man was J.P. Morgan, the banker who didn't just move money, but bent governments, industries, and empires to his will. And the most shocking part? He wasn't born with unimaginable wealth. He created it through ruthless cunning, an iron will, and a knack for seeing opportunities others missed. John Pierpont Morgan came from privilege, yes, but not the sort that guaranteed immortality in financial history. Born in 1837 in Hartford, Connecticut, his father, Junior Spencer Morgan, was a successful banker who made sure young Pierpont was educated in the best schools in Europe. Morgan grew up with a stiff spine, an appreciation for discipline, and an obsession with order, traits that would define his career. Still, he was no golden boy. As a child, he suffered from seizures and a disfigured nose due to a skin disease, giving him a sense of insecurity that he compensated for with control. He didn't just want to win, he needed to dominate. By the time he was in his 20s, Morgan was already dabbling in deals that showed flashes of the empire he would build. In 1857, while Europe faced a financial panic, he helped stabilize U.S. markets by channeling investments and calming investors. It was here that he proved he wasn't just another spoiled heir. He had a mind for numbers and an even keener mind for strategy. He understood something most bankers didn't. Money wasn't just money, it was power, and whoever controlled the flow of money controlled everything else. His rise wasn't smooth. During the Civil War, Morgan was caught in controversy when it was revealed he had profited by selling defective rifles to the Union Army at a huge markup. Critics accused him of being a war profiteer, putting profit above patriotism. But Morgan emerged unscathed, even richer, and, perhaps more importantly, more feared. To him, reputation wasn't about being liked. It was about being respected and indispensable. By the 1870s and 1880s, Morgan had cemented himself as the ultimate financial gatekeeper. He didn't just finance businesses, he engineered them. Railroads, the arteries of America's economy, were chaotic, with too many lines competing and collapsing. Morgan stepped in, reorganizing entire railroads, stabilizing them, and, of course, taking control. It was called Morganization, and it became a blueprint for how he would run industries, bring order, eliminate competition, and centralize power. But his real triumph came in 1901, when he orchestrated the creation of U.S. Steel. Imagine this, the world's first billion-dollar corporation, valued at $1.4 billion at the time, more than the U.S. government's entire budget. Morgan didn't build factories, and he didn't smelt steel. He bought up Andrew Carnegie's empire and countless smaller firms, fused them together, and became the invisible hand guiding America's industrial age. With power came resentment. To the public, Morgan was the face of monopoly and greed. Cartoonists depicted him as a giant octopus with tentacles wrapped around the government, the railroads, and Wall Street. Yet ironically, when America's financial system was on the brink, it was Morgan they turned to. In the panic of 1907, the stock market collapsed, banks failed, and there was no Federal Reserve to intervene. Morgan locked the nation's top bankers inside his library and forced them to commit funds to stabilize the markets. He literally saved the U.S. economy by sheer will, and afterward, people realized one private man held more financial power than the government itself. Of course, that power came at a price. Morgan was constantly under scrutiny. His enemies called him a monopolist, a robber baron, even a tyrant in a three-piece suit. The government eventually moved to break up the monopolies he created, passing antitrust laws to weaken the grip of men like him. But the truth was, Morgan never cared about popularity. He once said, "I don't want a lawyer to tell me what I cannot do. I hire him to tell me how to do what I want to do." That line alone tells you everything about his philosophy. By the time of his death in 1913, J.P. Morgan's personal fortune was estimated at around $80 million, roughly $2.5 billion in today's money. Ironically, compared to the titanic fortunes of Rockefeller or Carnegie, it wasn't astronomical. But wealth wasn't the only measure of his power. He had shaped the financial DNA of America. His banking firm outlived him, eventually becoming today's J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest banks in the world. Reflecting on his legacy is tricky. On one hand, He built order out of chaos, stabilized markets, and pushed America into the modern industrial age. Without him, the financial system might have collapsed under its own weight. On the other hand, he consolidated power so aggressively that it raised uncomfortable questions about democracy itself. When one man can summon bankers to his library and dictate the survival of the national economy, what does that say about the balance of power? Perhaps the greatest lesson from J.P. Morgan's life is this: money is never just money. In the right hands, it becomes influence, leverage, even a form of governance. Morgan understood this before anyone else, and he wielded it like a sword. Some saw him as a savior, others as a tyrant, but no one could ignore him. And here's a thought that lingers. In a world where governments still rely on private bankers, maybe we never really left the age of J.P. Morgan. We just gave it new names, new faces, and bigger numbers. If you enjoyed this story, leave a money bag in the comments.